Tonight, you'll put on a jacket without thinking about it. You'll pull on a sweater because the room feels cold. It's automatic, it's boring. But the reason you can do that at all is one of the strangest turns in the story of your species. You weren't born with fur. Not real fur, anyway. Just fine, thin hair that does almost nothing to keep you warm. And yet your ancestors survived ice ages, mountain winters, and freezing nights in open grassland. How? The answer isn't just they figured out clothes. That's the easy version. The real answer is stranger. It's a story about lice, about a genetic clock hidden in your own body, and about a moment when your ancestors' brains changed in a way that had nothing to do with survival at all. Start with your body. Around 2 million years ago, something happened to early humans that made almost no sense on its own. They lost their fur, not gradually thinned it, largely lost it. Most mammals in cold or exposed environments keep their fur. Losing it should have been a death sentence, but it wasn't, because losing fur solved a different problem. Early humans were becoming long-distance runners, hunting by endurance, chasing prey for hours in open heat, tracking it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Fur traps heat. Bare skin doesn't. Sweat glands spread across bare skin can cool a moving body far more efficiently than fur ever could. So the fur had to go. Your ancestors traded warmth for endurance. It made them extraordinary hunters. It also made them cold at night. Here's where the story gets interesting. Bare skin under an open sky is fine at noon in the savannah. It is not fine after dark, and it is definitely not fine somewhere colder. So the question becomes simple. When did humans start covering that bare skin? When did clothing actually begin? You'd think archaeologists could just dig up the answer. Find a piece of ancient leather, carbon date it, done. But cloth and hide rot. They vanish from the fossil record almost completely. There is no ancient closet waiting to be excavated, so scientists had to get creative. And the method they landed on is almost unbelievable. They looked at lice, not just any lice. Human head lice and human body lice are two separate subspecies. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing, only visiting skin to feed. Body lice cannot survive without fabric. No clothes, no body lice. Which means body lice could not have existed until humans started wearing something. In 2003, biologist Mark Stoneking and his colleague Ralph Kittler realized this was a hidden clock. If you compare the DNA of head lice and body lice, you can estimate how long ago they split into two separate lineages. That split had to happen right around the moment clothing entered the picture, because that's the exact moment a whole new insect niche opened up. Their answer landed somewhere around 170,000 years ago, give or take. Long after fur was gone, long before written history. Sit with that number for a second. Humans spent hundreds of thousands of years bare-skinned and cold before someone figured out to wrap something around themselves. Why the gap? Why did it take so long? It helps to remember what cold even meant back then. Africa wasn't uniformly warm. Nights on open savanna can drop sharply once the sun disappears, and higher altitude regions got genuinely frigid. Early humans weren't lounging in constant heat, waiting patiently for an idea. They were exposed night after night for hundreds of thousands of years without the one obvious fix sitting right in front of them. Compare that to your closest relatives. Neanderthals, living in far colder parts of Europe and Asia, seem to have used simple hide coverings much earlier and in a much more basic way, mostly draped rather than tailored. Their approach appears to have barely changed over tens of thousands of years. Yours did. This is where the story stops being about survival and starts being about your brain. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan has spent years arguing that clothing wasn't really about staying warm. Not at first. Early humans in Africa were already dealing with cool nights and seasonal chill long before that lice clock date. They had access to hides, plant fiber, and the physical ability to wrap things around themselves. The materials were there. The need was there. But the idea wasn't. Something had to click. Gilligan connects the timing of clothing to a broader cognitive shift happening in humans around that same window, a leap in symbolic thinking. This is roughly the same era when humans started using ochre pigment, making shell beads, and carving patterns into objects for no practical reason at all. That detail matters more than it sounds like it should, because it means clothing wasn't invented purely out of desperation. It was invented alongside decoration, alongside meaning. The moment humans could wrap fabric around their bodies for warmth is the same moment they could look at that fabric and think, this says something about me. Clothing became functional and symbolic at almost the exact same time. That's not a coincidence. That's the whole point. Consider what that means for something as basic as a shirt. A hide draped over shoulders keeps you warm. But dye that hide red, and now it means something else. Cut it a certain way, and it marks you as part of a group. Leave it plain, and that plainness itself becomes a signal. Anthropologist Ian Watts has studied ochre use in early human sites across southern Africa and found pigment residue dating back over 100,000 years, often alongside tools that suggest it was being applied to skins or bodies. Color wasn't incidental, it was chosen. So by the time your ancestors were reliably dressed, they weren't just solving a temperature problem, they were solving a social one. And think about what that actually required. To decorate a hide, you need tools sharp enough to cut and shape it. Scrapers, awls, bone needles fine enough to pierce leather without splitting it. Archaeological sites in places like Morocco and South Africa have turned up exactly these kinds of tools, dated to roughly the same window as the lice clock estimate. Bone needles with eyed holes start appearing not long after, evidence that humans weren't just wrapping hides anymore. They were stitching them into shapes, fitted sleeves, layered coverings, garments built to a body, not just draped over one. That shift from wrapping to tailoring is enormous. A draped hide is something you put on. A tailored garment is something you design. It requires planning ahead, imagining a finished shape before you've made it, and holding that plan in your head across many steps. That is a different kind of thinking than simply reacting to being cold. Here's the twist that makes this stranger still. Once clothing existed, it changed human evolution itself. Once you can wrap fur or hide around your body, you no longer need your body to solve the cold on its own. Clothing became a kind of external skin one your species could redesign faster than biology ever could. Instead of evolving thicker natural insulation over tens of thousands of years, humans could just make a warmer wrap in an afternoon.
This is sometimes called a form of niche construction. Instead of the environment shaping the body, humans started shaping a layer between themselves and the environment. And that layer let them move into places their bodies alone never could have survived. Cold steppes, mountain passes, Ice Age Europe. None of that was possible on bare skin. All of it became possible with a few stitched hides.
Gilligan takes this further. He argues that clothing may have done more than open new territory. It may have changed the pace of migration itself. Groups with reliable, tailored garments could push into colder latitudes faster than groups relying on fire and shelter alone because clothing travels with you. A fire doesn't. A cave doesn't. A well-made hide coat does. Wherever you walked, your insulation walked with you. That single fact may explain something that used to puzzle researchers. Human populations spread into northern Eurasia in relatively sudden pulses, not a slow, steady creep. Tailored clothing, appearing right around the same period as those bone needles, may be part of the reason the pace picked up. Not fire alone, not shelter alone. A wearable microclimate, invented once and carried everywhere after that, which raises an odd question. Would you have made it? Not you specifically, but a version of you, standing on that African plain 170,000 years ago, sweating easily because you'd lost your fur, shivering the moment the sun went down. Would you have thought to wrap something around your shoulders? Or would it have taken someone else nearby, someone experimenting with a scrap of hide before the idea spread? Because that's really what happened. Clothing didn't emerge from one genius moment. It emerged from small groups slowly discovering that a wrapped hide worked, watching each other do it, copying it, improving it. It spread the same way most human inventions spread, not through a single spark, but through people watching other people solve a problem and thinking, I could do that too. Now think about your closet. Every jacket, every scarf, every deliberately chosen color, every outfit that says something about who you are before you say a single word. All of that traces back to a few humans a few 100,000 years ago, figuring out almost by accident that a warm hide could also be a message. You do this constantly, and you barely notice. You choose a certain shirt for a job interview, not because it's warmer than any other shirt, but because it signals something about competence and care. You throw on an old worn hoodie on a lazy Sunday because comfort itself is a kind of message too, a signal that says you're not performing for anyone right now. Uniforms exist because clothing can erase individual identity and replace it with group identity in an instant. Fashion trends spread the exact same way that first hide wrapping idea probably spread. One person tries something, others watch, some copy it, and slowly a whole group starts doing the same thing without ever holding a meeting about it. Even the discomfort you feel showing up somewhere underdressed is a direct descendant of that same ancient signaling system. Your brain still treats clothing as information about status, belonging, and intention. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, that's exactly what it was. You still do exactly what they did. You dress for temperature and you dress for meaning. You choose black because it feels serious. You choose bright colors because you want to be seen. None of that is new. It's the oldest habit your species has, wearing skin that isn't yours and making it say something anyway. Tonight, when you pull on that jacket without thinking, you won't just be staying warm. You'll be repeating the same quiet decision your ancestors made in the cold 170,000 years ago. When they first realized that covering the body could change more than just the temperature, it could change who they were.